Co-host of The View, Meghan McCain, recently lamented about her Manhattan neighborhood becoming a war zone due to the protests happening in New York. So now she tweeted this: "My neighborhood in Manhattan is eviscerated and looks like a war zone. De Blasio and Cuomo are an utter disgrace. This is not America. Our leaders have abandoned us and are continuing to let great American cities burn to the ground and be destroyed. I never could have fathomed this." So now that tweet is too good not to pick apart. Oh, eviscerated. Total war zone. Well, you're going to find out that's not true at all. This is not America. No. This is totally America. See, protest is a American as apple pie, going all the way back to the literal Boston Tea Party, where there was destruction of property. It was basically a riot where people threw a bunch of merchandise overboard and then fomented an open rebellion. So, yes, protest, looting, and property destruction is actually pretty American, which is hilarious. But no, it's not America. She also says that our leaders have abandoned us. Well, that's true in the fact of Donald Trump, who was literally hiding in the bunker and letting great American cities burn to the ground. I could not have fathomed this. Well, she, of course, wouldn't be able to fathom this because Meghan McCain is a picture of a child of privilege, right? Daughter of the great John McCain, right? Grew up incredibly wealthy, incredibly privileged. And so that doesn't mean that she hasn't had a day of hardship in her life. It just means that her hardship is way less than what other people experience that are not part of her social class. And so she is privileged. And so now, still, was her neighborhood a war zone, as she claims? Why, again, I said that that's not true. So where do I get my confirmation from? Her neighbor. Actually, her neighbor is Kristen Bartlett, a chief writer for TBS's Full Frontal. And so it's funny because that just shows that she lives in a very wealthy area in Manhattan, which, of course, you got to be really wealthy to live in a good place in Manhattan. And so, yeah, of course, you've got this, nighttime show, writer and other celebrities living in the same building. And so, again, part of her privilege, right? So she comes out and she says, "Actually, Meghan, we live in the same building and I just walked outside. It's fine." Again, you think her neighborhood's going to be touched? Her ritzy little neighborhood? Give me a break. So, ridiculous. Now, of course, this is nothing more than a political hit against de Blasio and Cuomo, who are both Democrats. Now, that's not to say that de Blasio and Cuomo haven't completely effed this up. I mean, look, I've criticized them for coronavirus, especially Cuomo, and criticizing de Blasio for what the NYPD has been doing, right? But at the same time, you can critique them on what they've actually done wrong without literally lying about your community being on fire, which it obviously is not. Meghan McCain's neighborhood hasn't burnt down. It's not a war zone. You've never seen a war zone. If you want to see a war zone, Meghan, why don't you go to some of the places that your dad advocated bombing? Like Iraq, for example. That was a war zone. No, ridiculous. Anyway, so now that happened a while ago, right? So why are you talking about an old story like this? Old story is like a day that's like, or a story that's like a couple days old now at this point, because everything moves so insanely fast in this country. The news does. But wait, there's been a development. Turns out she ain't even in New York. She's not there. She apparently has, according to a source, speaking to Page 6, she's not even in New York. She went to Virginia. Why did she go to Virginia? So she can ride out coronavirus with her guns. What are you going to shoot the virus? Doesn't make any sense. What are you doing? But okay, look, I understand that, yes, she wanted to get away from coronavirus in New York. I get that, right? But then you might be carrying coronavirus to Virginia. So congratulations on that one. Oh, but anyway, that said, so she's sitting in Virginia tweeting about how horrible it is in New York. Okay. All right. Now, of course, McCain's personal representative pushed back and said, those claims of her not being in New York are absolutely untrue. Totally false, fake news. However, McCain herself later admitted that she's not in New York. She had left at some point during the COVID-19 epidemic, which, by the way, nearly 17,000 people have already died in New York City from coronavirus, from COVID-19. And now, in fact, there's a new update on some of the numbers of people being, getting coronavirus. We've had a jump of 20,000 people across the country in one day. Fun times. But she said this, quote, and this is to page 6, right? When she, was asked by them about what she's doing, if she's actually in New York or not. Quote, I am 6 months pregnant. A gossip organization is about to run a story of where me and my family are currently. I sent a tweet yesterday based on news I saw happening in Midtown. We all have been watching from all over different media platforms. So, not in New York, tweeting for Virginia, right? And she gets caught, at least, lying, fabricating, whatever, right? And then when caught, says, well, I'm pregnant. Well, of course I'd leave New York. How dare you? How dare you ask me? What a victim. God, she's always the victim. These conservatives, man, playing the victim, they're so good at it. They do. They do this all the time. So, okay, Meghan, why would you lie about your neighborhood as if you're there? I mean, you're not there. And maybe the things that you're watching, if you're convinced that your neighborhood is on fire based on the stuff that you're watching, maybe the stuff that you're watching is wrong. You ever thought about that? No, of course not. Never crossed your mind. Now, that's not to say, of course, that there hasn't been violence and destruction, broken windows, etc., fires even. But again, the vast majority of the protests have been peaceful. And the overwhelming violence that has occurred, right, in the situations where there were violence, were performed mostly by police, perpetrated by police. And so that's a problem, right? I mean, all you have to do is look at some of the video from the protests, from the actual protests, from people on the ground, police charging peaceful protesters. There's even a situation where Oregon police kneeled with the protesters and then 45 minutes started beating the crap out of them, even when the protesters were still peaceful. But that's, of course, when the cameras were off. Oh, we're going to kneel with you for solidarity, and then we're going to crack your head open with a baton. Well, there you go. Seriously. We've also seen video, of course, of people firing tear gas canisters and rubber bullets right at the protesters. Some people firing from their vehicles. I mean, come on, dude. We know who's causing the violence. We also know that there is some destruction from white supremacist, right-wing protesters, groups that are trying to delegitimize actual protests. And so, that said, McCain still supports it, which is interesting. She says, I support the peaceful protests, their movement, but I'm absolutely heartbroken about destruction in the city I have loved since I moved to when I was 18 years old. It's important to have your voice heard, and I hope everyone stays safe and healthy. Look, for the most part, we agree with you, Meghan. So why lie? Why lie and stop using this, why don't you stop using this in order to take political shots at people that you don't like. I know you don't like Cuomo. I know you don't like de Blasio. I don't like Cuomo, right? And so I got problems with both of them. I got problems with everybody. Now you're going to hear about it. And that said, lying or making things up and saying, oh my God, my neighborhood's on fire when it really isn't, in order to try to make a political point against people you don't like, this is gross. But understand that's exactly who Meghan McCain is. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a patreon.com/TYTNation set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.